Richard
Hold,
Glazer.
hold, hold on.
All right, ready?
Like, here you go. So,
Yeah, take one.
yeah, right, exactly. So, yeah, we have people joining in. Maybe, yeah, if you want to kick things off, go right ahead, man.
Well, welcome. Welcome to the age of Zoom, otherwise known as COVID. It's remarkable seeing so many familiar faces with different hairdos than last time we saw each other. So this is RocGrowth. This is our 6th virtual event. We're adopting the coffee format, which typically occurs a first Friday of alternating months. It's very informal. It's at a co-work, but we found that Zoom is satisfactory, and and as long as you provide your own coffee. But RocGrowth emerged a little over 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, out of some work I and a few others were doing that was connected to the Regional Economic Development Council, our own. And I want to sort of bookmark that for a moment because I enjoyed that work, but I also was very conscious of how different regions, contiguous regions in upstate confronting the same problems, seem to be competing with each other for typically a source of state funding, which in and of itself says something about the upstate New York region. I feel fortunate to be in the midst virtually of so many innovators and entrepreneurs who get stuff done and don't necessarily look towards Albany for the direction. So RocGrowth is about empowering the new Rochester. And we want to jumpstart a conversation about what a new Rochester means, what a new Buffalo means, because we're sister cities or whatever. I don't necessarily want to assign any gender value to it. We could call them, him, whatever, but we are alongside each other. And if you add the 1 + 1, we're roughly equivalent populations ranking around number 50 in metro areas. You achieve a top 30 status, and roughly equivalent of Kansas City and Cincinnati. We also share stories from our community's great innovators and entrepreneurs. If you go to our website, and I encourage all of you to register to receive emails of future events and comb the archives. It's long shelf life of all the videos where we've recorded our interviews with great innovators and the like. We have some, I think, useful blog material as well. We also enjoy causing what we call creative collisions. We have to do it virtually for the most part these days, and getting people who ought to know each other, who might not yet, to know each other and achieve a vibrant pay it forward ecosystem upstate. And then everything we do is informed by promoting greater equity of race, class, gender, and age. We recognize that greater diversity will help us achieve the aspirations for a more vibrant upstate and a healthier economy. So we have about 2,400 email addresses. It's a fresh list. It generates the interest you're seeing today, where we have 1,300 or so followers on Facebook. We use social media. Please post. Please use this as a resource. And one thing many people don't know is that we do have a domain, but we are not incorporated in any such way. We're very agile. We're virtual in a way. And we have a committed team of supporters, including, I see Adriana Skura-Palmer. We have Tom Myers, who might be driving back from New Hampshire this very moment. We have Chris Cooley. We have Justin Moore here and Andrew Brady. And then there are several others. So we're passionate, we're dedicated, and we care about our community. So let's have a wonderful discussion. Chris, hand over the mic to you.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I got to second that. The team here is incredible, and we have a kind of a laid back format, right? There's a little sort of quote that I like to start with because we kicked off these Zoom sessions with a theme kind of entitled "Give and Take." And so the idea behind that is that, if you want to take something, you first must allow it to be given. And that's really what we want to invite all of our presenters to kind of focus on as well. So I'm going to go over some logistics for the day, just sort of what the format looks like. If you haven't been a part of this sort of discussion before, we look at this more of a conversation than a presentation. And just so you all know, my name is Chris Cooley. I am the MC. I am a proud supporter of RocGrowth and local entrepreneur here in Rochester. So not to be confused with the former NFL football player, Chris Cooley. Very different builds here. So the guidelines and the sort of rules, just to keep things in order, we have, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 presenters today. So we're going to keep things pretty quick and concise. There's a couple of sort of house rules: no sales, not an ask for money, not a pitch. This is a request for solutions to challenges, and also to speak about collaboration and to have an opportunity to have a space where we can also be vulnerable, talk about some, to talk about challenges is to be open and to have dialogue and do that in a really respectful way. So as participants, we ask that you please feel free to use the chat. Once we have wrapped up the presentations, we will have an open forum where you as the audience will be able to ask questions through the chat. Please ask them through the chat. And if you have something that you'd really like to say in regard to what the presenters have touched upon, please feel free. Send me a message in the chat. You can send it privately or even to the group and just say, hey, I have something I wanna touch on. So that way I can call on you and you don't even have to run through me, right? So at the end of this, we will have a 5-minute, what we call popcorn. If someone has an announcement, we'll give you 30 seconds. You can say, you have an event coming up, most likely a Zoom event, but you can sort of mention that. You can also put that in the chat at any given time, or if you have a project you're working on and you just want to share your contact information. Richard mentioned this is all about creative collision, so we want to make sure that that's still happening even in this virtual world that we now live in. So I'm going to kick off. If you have questions for the presenters, like I mentioned, feel free to let me know in the chat or chime in. An example of question might be like, are you a Bills fan? If not, how did that happen, right? Or in reality, like, what's the #1 challenge of serving both the Buffalo and Rochester market? Just some examples or ideas. And before we kick off, I do want to show you all. I don't know if anybody's seen this book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. I saw this on my nightstand because I happened to be reading it this morning and realized that it's the same title as what we came up with for this format. For those of you who don't know, the gist of this book is that there's a bunch of research and that's been done to sort of profile 3 different types of people. Those people being givers, takers, and matchers. And the idea for the book is to measure and determine who are the most successful types of profiles. And it turns out that the least successful people are givers. And at the same time, the most successful people are also givers. So what that means is that to give, it takes time to build up over time. Matchers are people who tend to give and expect something in return, and takers are, well, you kind of paint the picture for yourself. But what I'd really like you to consider as we go through this today is, are you a matcher, a taker, or a giver? Just something to ponder. So based on that note, I'm going to start to kick this off by calling on Jack Greco, because Jack happens to have a birthday party or something that he needs to get set up or something like that. So not to get too much into Jack's personal life, but Jack, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my son's 5th birthday, so that explains why a birthday party is being planned at 8:10 in the morning. So, Chris, you said I had about 3 minutes, so I'm going to start a stopwatch so I don't go too far over. Okay. So, hi everybody, nice to meet you, Jack Greco. I also want to give a shout out to another individual on the chat, Clark Dever. who up until yesterday was my partner at something called ecosystem development for Techstars, which recently sunsetted. So Clark, I don't know if you can give a quick wave to everybody and say hi, but he's going to be here probably longer than I am because I'm going to get dragged into making a birthday cake or something. So quick background, born in Rochester, as was Clark. Was there up until about 5 years ago, but really for like the last 15 years have been crossing this chasm that we call the Thruway, which Batavia seems to be the center of, between Buffalo and Rochester. And I always kind of felt to myself sometimes as like a bumblebee, trying to cross pollinate. This started way back in the days when, UB was really the center of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Buffalo. And I had the good fortune, one of the other people you hear from, Mario Falone, was one of the first people that kind of brought me on the venture scene too, when he was a GP in a fund that I was an associate with at Trillium in Rochester. So, really for like the last, I would say like last 10-ish years, but more deliberately over the last 2 years, a lot of the focus that we had with Techstars and I've done personally have been around trying to, what I called, fold the map. And it was really between Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse. So Richard, I mean, to add to your stat, if you actually combine Buffalo, Rochester, and you include Syracuse in there too, we're actually like the 21st largest metro area, which rivals Baltimore and Denver. So most people wouldn't think upstate New York and Denver in the same conversation. They do exist, right? And so it was a lot of opening eyes and minds to that kind of thing. So a lot of the focus has just really been on creating like positive collaborations across them. It's amazing. I mean, I'm a alumni of U of R. I don't even think U of R and RIT work that well together. So it's not like it's just a problem between two cities, but there's also these like honeycomb clusters of individual silos in each city as well. So, as with all good things, you start with a hammer and start taking things down. Demo's the funnest part. So a lot of what's been going on is just trying to like tear down the walls and then, use that material to hopefully rebuild bridges. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Anybody that wants to can reach out. My give is I do about 10 hours of mentorship a week in somewhere between 20 and 30-minute slots. And I'm going to put that out there in a Calendly. And you won't see any slots for the next week and a half because I'm on vacation. But after that, anybody is free to grab some time. So I should be at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Wow, Jack, good one. And I'm glad you set your timer because after all that and me talking about setting a timer, I forgot to do it until a minute in. So
that's okay.
Oh, good stuff. All right. Thank you, Jack. Next up, we have Craig. Is Craig in the house somewhere?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go. Craig, I'm going to
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a spotlight and please rock and roll when you're ready.
Okay. My name, for people who don't know me, is Craig Jensen. I'm an architect in Rochester, New York. Our firm has offices in both Rochester and Buffalo. And, we found it really productive to have offices in both places because we can share resources going back and forth, regardless if people are working in Rochester or in Buffalo. They work on projects all over Western New York for us. And, we learn a lot about both communities. We can have a foot in both. We can have a presence in both. And we can share resources. There's just no reason not to be in both places. I mean, I think we think of these two offices as almost as one office, and the way you work today, it doesn't really seem to matter where you are. You can be in either place and still be collaborating with the people in the other location. Our office in Rochester is in the kind of emerging Strong neighborhood on South Union, and our office in Buffalo is in Larkinville. So, both those places are relatively pedestrian friendly, and I think, really speak to what I think these communities need to do to both survive and maybe even thrive. Even though intuitively you might think that in order for the cities to be better connected, they should grow towards one another. I think we would be better off if the cities kind of really focus on their urban core and, redensification and the mixed use kind of redevelopment of the, urban center, because I think they will actually be stronger together if each one is more of a destination. So when I go to Buffalo, and I arrive at a place that I can use in every way possible, both as a, live, work, play kind of environment. If we try and spread these cities out to connect them, I think we'll fail. But I think if we strengthen the core of the cities, then I think the reasons to go back and forth become greater. And I think the draw, the kind of gravitational pull of these two places becomes better. And it will, in the end, benefit us. It also would benefit us then, I think, because of, different types of transit will work a lot better if we're going from centralized location to centralized location rather than sprawl to sprawl. So I think, that's my single biggest thought about how to make our connection more successful. I've got more I think I can share, but I think that's the thing I'd like to, stress the most. We as a firm really like to focus on placemaking, and I think that is going to be part of the success of both of these cities as they move forward. And I think there's an interest in that in both places. So I'm relatively hopeful. I'm not sure if that's 3 minutes, but that's what I've got.
You're spot on. I don't know if my beeper is actually sounding because I then put myself on mute. So there's all these little things that I'm realizing maybe we should touch on. But yeah, really interesting that you bring that up. Like maybe we need a personalized drone service that can fly me back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And in the reality, right, an hour and 15-minute commute, which would be like door to door, Rochester to Buffalo, is something that a lot of people in major metro areas would just kind of laugh at, right? If we were to complain about that. So yeah, connecting the downtowns is a great idea. And somebody said a teleporter, which obviously is a great idea as well. Thanks, Craig. Well, I think there might be some questions as well, or we can have some time for follow-up even after all the presenters go. It's very interesting to hear your thoughts about that development sort of process. We have Mario. Mario, are you here somewhere?
I am.
All right. Let me give you tag your video here and go for it.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone. And thanks again, Richard and Chris, for organizing this. Love what you guys are doing and happy to be a supporter of it. So my name is Mario Falone. I was born and bred in Rochester, New York. Both my parents were born in Italy. And as I was growing up, I didn't realize what an amazing place Western New York was. I had an aunt and a number of first cousins who grew up in Buffalo. So I spent significant time in both cities and always was a big fan of the sports teams and all of the outdoor activities we had, both winter and summer. But when I went away to college and when I went away for my first job, which was in the UK in London to practice law at a large international law firm, I started to have a greater appreciation for what was going on here in this part of the world. And I moved back to New York after a number of years in London to work for a family office where, as Jack mentioned, I connected with him. And it's people like Jack, people like Richard, people who are constantly interested in paying it forward, building a community that are using the bones of this region, well-educated population, a lot of technology, people who are working very hard and very supportive of each other with significant natural resources that I think are building a gem. And one negative that I've seen is I don't know that we're as positive about this. And I think in being away, I had the opportunity to really appreciate what was here. So my goal has constantly been to try to find ways for all of us to collaborate, to see the positives, and to find ways to accentuate those positives. And my hope is in events like this, we leverage our collective resources to try to help better the ecosystem here. And when you hear people from Silicon Valley, they don't say I'm from Mountain View, right? They say I'm from the Bay Area. And I think if we start to think more regionally and start to view this as truly a family, a Western New York and upstate New York family, then I think a lot of the points that people have been making to date start to resonate, not only internally, but externally. And we need to find ways to draw in resources from outside. Capital is one of those things. But there's a lot here. And Chris, you raised a good point. Living in London and living in New York, a 1 hour, 1.5 hour commute was considered pretty good. So this idea that that distance should be a detriment, I think is another thing that probably isn't really the case. So my give is use me as a resource. We love to support these events. We love to connect people. And I just hope all of us can think more laterally to find ways to collaborate. So I think that's 3 minutes, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Mario. Everybody's doing so well on the 3-minute thing. I guess I like really hit it home this morning, that we were going to be really conscious of that. So thank you. I actually have a couple questions for you, maybe that we can circle back to later, but it's really fantastic, Mario. So next up we have John. Is John here?
I am definitely going to need that 3-minute buzzer, Chris. Those of you who know me know that I can go long. So, Richard, Chris, thanks for having me on. Richard, it's been awesome to reconnect with you after the 43 North years. So I'm super stoked to get back in touch with RocGrowth. My name's John Gavigan. I'm the managing director of Endeavor Western New York. And Endeavor is a global network built for high impact, high growth entrepreneurs. And we support those entrepreneurs with access to global capital, access to markets around the world, and mentors and talent, very influential mentors and talent. So my right-hand man who's on the phone right now, or on the Zoom call, Alan Rosenhawk, together we source, select, and support the very best high growth entrepreneurs from this region. And we access our global resources to provide them support. But there's a nuance in this too. As we go through selection and identifying our region's best entrepreneurs, we're also looking for the ones that have almost a soulful desire to give back to the community and really nurture the next wave and usher in the next wave of entrepreneurs in our community. So we're really happy about that. Our organization here in Western New York is comprised of a board of 6 people. We're very fortunate that we have Deborah Biedenkopf from DMB2 or MD2 group in Rochester. Deborah is strong in the finance area, and she does a lot of M&A work. She's an unbelievable board member. Many of you know her. And Christine Whitman, who runs Complimar. And we've got a bunch of board members in Buffalo as well, including Scott Stenslick, and it's chaired by John Summers. So we got a terrific team on our staff. And one of the stated goals as we built Endeavor Western New York was, as Jack said, not only tear down the walls, but how we phrased it was build a seamless relationship between Buffalo and Rochester. And so a lot of our KPIs really directly tied to this. In fact, our Buffalo mentors evaluate and mentor our Rochester candidates and vice versa. It's all those little touch points seem to knit us in a more meaningful way together. Yesterday, in fact, was one of our biggest days of the year since we opened up. I think Jay McCarg is on the line right now, but Jay McCarg, CEO of Aerosafe Global, was our second company and 5th entrepreneur from this region to be selected to the global network. And a lot of Jay's support came from the Buffalo market, right? So it was a combination of both. Those little touch points seem to matter quite a bit. Craig mentioned live, work, play, so I won't get into that, but I absolutely agree with what Craig said. Thank you for saying that. I think there is something that all of us could work on a big, not unlike Amazon when they were coming to the region, but there's a new Endless Frontier Act being supported by Congress right now. It's a bipartisan bill that will tap into regional hubs, technology hubs in North America, and particularly in the US. And they're looking for 10. And I think we have a much better shot at tapping into that bill if we find a meaningful way of leveraging each other's assets to go after the money. So I think it's something that we should continue the conversation on. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate the insights. I mean, this is exciting stuff. I think there's a question in the chat that I really want to come back to. And so, Steve, if you can hear me, well, I know you can hear me. We'll come back to your question for sure. In the meantime, is JP here somewhere?
I'm here.
JP.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There we go. Okay, gotcha. I can hear you through one frame, and I can see you through another. So here we go. You're here, man.
All right. Thanks for having me. So I've been folding this map for 15 years between Buffalo and Rochester. I grew up in Amherst. I moved to Rochester in 1999 because I got promoted to be a restaurant manager. One thing led to another. I went to RIT, so I didn't want to stand on my feet for 30 years. So I was born in Buffalo, educated in Rochester. I'm a geek all the way. While I was in Rochester, towards the tail end of my most recent residence there, I started a cybersecurity software company. And I ended up moving to DC because I couldn't find investors in upstate New York that understood the value prop and capital requirements of software. But I came back 3 years later, and I'm starting to see that change. So since I've left and come back, ACVs happened, cloud checkers happened. I've seen a much more software-focused ecosystem, or I've seen software folks participate in the ecosystem more than I did 5 years ago. Recently, I've been taking the Amtrak from Buffalo to Rochester to come and meet with clients and or collaborate with people in Rochester. And as long as the train's on time, it's actually great because I get an hour to myself, kind of like, if I was in DC, and then I get an hour on the way home. I've been using interns and co-ops at both UB and RIT for years now, so probably for 5 years. I want to stress that when I lived in Rochester, one of my goals was to bridge in cybersecurity the professional and academic gap, because like RIT is its own little city, and the students and the professionals in Rochester weren't that well connected. So I helped lead things like getting the Rochester Security Summit from Victor to downtown, where it's more accessible to more students. And I'd like to see those types of efforts continue. I want to say that since I moved back to Buffalo in late 2016, I've been able to lean on a lot of people in both regions, really for what I call founder therapy as my startup burned to the ground. So my give is in the past, let's say, so I sold my startup earlier this year. In the past 2 to 4 months, I've been working with a bunch of different early stage, really software and cybersecurity startups, but a few other areas with their value prop, helping them to figure out what their why is and their decks. And 2 of those 4 have gone on to raise $5 million in the past month. But I'm learning that I have a passion to help people simplify and make their story more concise, so that they can tell that early founder story successfully, so that they can get the revenue and the traction they need to go and build that company. So my give is anybody who just needs someone to tell them they're doing it wrong, someone to tell them what they're doing well, or to help do it better, someone to give them a different perspective. I'm kind of blunt, but I found that taking things like tools that we have available to us, like the Lean Canvas, and having a framework to put our thinking to build a deck, I've been pretty successful at helping people do that. So I'm putting it out there to and you don't have to be software or cybersecurity. You could be a restaurant startup, whatever. I'm happy to help anybody who needs anything around that. And I also have a lot of connections around the East Coast in the VC world. So I'm also willing to, where it makes sense, make introductions there. Did I fall into 3 minutes?
JP, you're good. Thank you so much. I mean, this is incredible. The resources in the true theme of the give portion. I just think that this is just so cool to have all of you on this call and be able to provide your insight and knowledge so freely and openly. So thank you for that. Last but not least, Shane. Where's Shane?
Hello.
There you are. Here, let me spotlight your video here and go for it.
Hey, everyone, and thank you very much. This is a really exciting conversation. I think the perspective I'd like to offer is a little bit newer. I've only really been between the Buffalo and Rochester area for the last couple of years. I've been in Buffalo for only 6 years as well, so it's a little bit of a transplant type of perspective for you. But our company, we're a startup in Buffalo called Aviate Audio. We do music products for musicians, and the team and myself started visiting the Rochester area from Buffalo in 2019, so not very long ago. And we kept going back, and it actually didn't take long for it to become a weekly routine. It seemed that every week there was something coming up that we wanted to be in Rochester for, like a RocGrowth event or a business plan competition, or we're meeting with researchers at the university at Rochester or students, and meeting more people who are interested also in music technology. So it's great what we're building together, and for our purposes, it's for music, but one way or another, we're building an ecosystem together, something larger than the sum of its parts. And there's an interesting story I could add that sort of spoke to me about what we're doing here today. There's this store in Buffalo called the Fish Place. It's in Tonawanda in Buffalo, and it's a home aquarium store where you can buy fish and fish tanks. And the thing about fish tanks is that you're building an ecosystem. That's what the point of a home aquarium is. You put the parts together and it supports and sustains life. So during this period of quarantine, it turns out that the Fish Place is actually seeing a really significant increase in their sales. People are coming in all the time, buying really expensive equipment, new tanks, getting set up with some fish. And the store is having single weeks where they're surpassing their entire sales for the year of 2019. So they're going nuts over there. They're running out of supplies. They're selling like crazy, and they're actually doing great. And so it just spoke to me that a lot of people are making ecosystems right now. And that's what we're doing here in a big way between two cities. And I think it's a mindset that the masses are adopting. People are pursuing those things that give them their creative enjoyment, creating ecosystems. So my take on why everybody is building these ecosystems and buying out all the inventory at the Fish Place is that people are deepening their roots into music, into art, into those activities that connect people with their most creative and fulfilled selves. Supporting a fish tank or writing music, being creative in dance. People are looking to do this way more now in this period of somewhat in isolation or just in change. People are changing their perspectives and being drawn back to what people really get the most out of, which in my opinion is our truest expressions of creativity and what we can do to achieve our greatest propensity to perform in whatever it is that we're passionate about. So we're renewing our interest in those things, and that brings us together today to talk about this ecosystem between Buffalo and Rochester. So hopefully that is a great way of wrapping up that sentiment, and thank you guys for being here.
My big question is, so did you buy a fish recently?
I actually do have a fish tank, but it's really been with my guitar playing, taking more time to practice my instrument and improve myself as a musician. My musicianship has been personally for me the biggest area that I've been working on during this period.
Sure. Great. I'm glad to hear it. So the awesome presenters, thank you so much. I believe that there's been some questions coming through in the chat, and I'd also like to give Jean, is Jean here? I'd like to give Jean some time. Oh, there you are. I see you. You're on mute though. I'm gonna give you the floor here.
You mean me, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm, good morning.
Hey, by the way, here you go.
Well, Amanda Chestnut is on here too. Can you unmute her? Amanda is the curator of this project. Amanda,
yeah,
Amanda, can you unmute? Well, anyhow, while we're waiting, thank you very much. The story goes like this. I love everything I'm hearing. And are we good?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, there's Amanda.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hi.
All right. I'm just going to say one sentence and then it's all Amanda. I had this idea this past summer, right after the murder of George Floyd, number 100 million in murders of Black people. And it combined with seeing a gorgeous image of a local Black artist, Adam Eaton. And his image touched my heart so much. And it was called Grieving in Red. And it was an image of a beautiful Black woman draped in red that was his creation and how his heart reacted to the murder of George Floyd. And what that did was move me to do something from my white world, my white platforms, whatever I've got for just virtue of being white. And one of the first people that I started to work with and reached out to was Amanda Chestnut. Amanda.
So what we're doing with this project is we're highlighting 10 Black leaders in the Rochester community using the artwork of 10 Black photographers and 10 Black writers. And we are, this is entirely a crowd-funded project. And so it's interesting to me to listen to this conversation about joining together Rochester and Buffalo, because our largest funding for this project is actually coming from Buffalo, even though we are using profiles of Black leaders in the Rochester area. Our largest single donations are coming out of the Buffalo area. So I think that there is some opportunity for the communities to, there's definitely awareness in both communities of each other, but there's also opportunity for support and collaboration going back and forth. So we're publishing in Rochester, we're printing in Rochester, we're hiring designers in Rochester, we're paying the artists and the writers and the leaders, and this has really been a crash course for me. I have a certificate in nonprofit management, and I've worked in nonprofit arts administration for 20 years. But to kind of be on the entrepreneurial side of this and to be thinking about art as a business, but also changing the model so it's more open for community collaboration, has been a very interesting adventure, and I'm actually really, really excited. And I hope at the end of this project, I'll be able to share with you all a summary of how this project's kind of bucked some of the rules and traditions in fundraising and development and project building.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. It also ties into a couple other questions. This conversation ties into a couple other questions that have come up in the chat. And I also wanted to say, Suzanne Mayer mentioned mentoring young Black entrepreneurs helps, and they learn and you learn. So I do want to give a shout out to an organization that here in Rochester that I just became a mentor in, called Compere. And I will say that by giving that time, it's just been so gratifying. I'm pretty new to it, but I showed my mentee who's 11. I introduced him to the Rock Game Dev group because he's a gamer, and it blew his mind how you could actually make a video game, right? And so just doing something like that, I know that Compere is actually looking for. They have some youth. Boys and young men are traditionally overlooked in this group. And so I know that a lot of them have been on a waiting list for 3 years. So if you're thinking about something like that, mentoring and being able to give back to even an individual, young individual in our communities, those types of organizations are an incredible way to do that. And along the same topic, I have a question, and I'm going to kind of direct this one to Mario. Mario, you talked a lot about resources. And I'm curious what your answer might be to this. And I'm going to read the question verbatim because I think it's really important. It says, this is from Steve. What are folks doing with their leadership teams and boards to be intentionally diverse? How do you see that advantaging your business? And are you willing to make that case to the largely white power structure in upstate? Another way to ask this, and I think this is the really important thing, and Mario, I'm kind of picking you out if you're here still, because you mentioned resources. The other part of this question is, another way to ask is, what should we do today? So my two Black sons who have created a growing business at 9 years old, look around in 10 years and want to be job creators here in Rochester and not go elsewhere, as so many other people of color do, to exercise their talent. There's a lot of layers to that. Mario, because you talked a lot about resource, is that something that you'd be willing to touch on?
Yeah, I think, listen, the value of diversity, as Richard highlighted, is massive. And I think these are important things that we as a collective are struggling with. And it's something that's very important to me, and something that I think we all need to try to do better at. There are a lot of organizations and groups that are trying to focus on different aspects of the ecosystem that are underrepresented and underserved. And those sorts of organizations, I try to support when we can. And I think that mentoring and being available and finding ways to involve yourself is of the utmost importance. So I don't have a silver or magic wand that we can wave, but I know that that's something that a lot of folks that I come in contact with are committed to and working towards. And I think, featuring Jean and Amanda and getting the word out there of what's going on and how are ways that we can then put our time and treasure behind it is hugely important. So I wish I had a better answer other than a commitment to and a willingness to work towards. But that's a goal, and I think it's a goal for all of us, or I hope it is.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's this has been a topic on some past RocGrowth Coffee conversations, and Richard and I and the rest of the group, we have a lot of dialogue about racial inequity and some of the concerns that have been coming up and that have been here for a long time. Let's face it, right? And so how do we solve or at least come to some conclusions and help provide resources to people who are traditionally marginalized? That's something that I know that as a group we all stand for. And so so anything that we can do, the biggest thing that's come up in our conversations and in other conversations around this has been what do I do? How do I take action? The reality is, go participate in things that involve people who may not look like you, but are also human beings and are a lot like you, actually, right? It's like, get out and actually just participate. So glad to hear, Mario. Thank you. Do any of the other presenters want to maybe chime in on this diversity? What's happening to be able to be more inclusive on boards? Or Suzanne, are you, I just flipped over and I saw you kind of like moving your hand. Are you trying to get my attention somehow? I can't hear you, but you can unmute yourself if you want to speak. But I can't hear you, even though you're unmuted, unfortunately. Sorry, technical stuff. We'll give you a second. If you can figure it out in 10 seconds, we'll have you on.
Chris, can I add something, or are you just doing this for presenters right now?
Eve, please go ahead.
So I guess I would offer this. There's not one answer to this. Just in some of the comments, you hear the word 2 and 4 quite a bit. And so what we do, and so I represent the Institute for Poverty Studies and Economic Development at SUNY Brockport. So what we do is we try to engage people that want to tackle these issues of equity around the social discipline window, which says you do things with community. And so as you approach this space and conversations, you have to start with trust and relationship. How are you coming to this space to talk about equity? And that's the starting point. And then the rest of it follows from there. So for example, when you're talking about some of the urban development, it sounds a lot like gentrification. And so how do you create that conversation that avoids that? So affordable housing, commuter taxes, is there going to be a coalition of people that want to advocate for these types of things and do it together, start the conversation together? And that's just something we struggle with in the region. We're very segregated.
Chris, can I add to that as well? Would you mind?
Yeah, please.
So we've spent a lot of time, we believe that entrepreneurism will help balance out equity, gender, racial equity, you name it. It's kind of the pathway for equality. That's our belief. So we spend a ton of time working with aspiring young entrepreneurs that are going to leverage entrepreneurism as a pathway forward. And it's somewhat biblical. I mean, it's teaching people how to fish. The biggest challenge that we have is that there's just not enough resources for sustainability. So to some of the prior points, and I think you made the point earlier, is just get engaged. Like, it's selecting one person to make a difference in. And if everybody ultimately ended up doing that, then regardless of organizations or formal organizations or whatever, they're all good. But it really is the initiative of a human being to support one other human being. And when you replicate that, great things can happen. So that's the biggest challenge that we see, is just the resources available for sustainability.
Hey, John, along that line, I have a question sort of to keep going on that. What do you all do to make sure that, or maybe, I'm just curious, how you potentially get this word out, that all of the resources that you can potentially provide into communities that maybe don't necessarily always have access or privilege to be able to be in rooms with you? I mean, do you go to communities and say, hey, there's money here, or we can support you in this way? That's just something that I'm curious about, if that happens or not.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time promoting what other people are doing as well. I think Jack and Clark did a remarkable job. I think you guys are doing a remarkable job. So, our platform, our global platform, has a lot of resources that we'll point to, but there's so many other great avenues and great work being done that oftentimes when people either find us on LinkedIn, we got our LinkedIn pages, we've got our Twitter pages all set up, that oftentimes we will promote the great work of other people so that it becomes a bit more viral. And to the point of this whole discussion, that we're actually collaborating and leveraging each other's assets for the greater good. It's not just what Endeavor's doing, it's really leveraging us as a portal into what other great people and organizations are doing. And I think the more we think that way, the better off our community will be, and then by extension, our country. So I think we can be a representative for that.
Amen to that. Thank you. Richard, where are you? Did you want to say something, Rick?
Yeah, thanks. I want everyone to know Chris and I are soul brothers in a way. And we've done a lot of work on racial inequities in the community. And it was a natural progression from my involvement in economic development that led me to that issue, because it's become very obvious that that is the ball and chain we're dragging in this region. There is a reason why the most segregated communities in our country are the ones where the economy has stalled. That's throughout the Great Lakes region, and particularly Buffalo and Rochester are great examples. And what we've learned in the process is that many people in communities where there's been a tremendous amount of discrimination also don't have the social capital I have. I went to Haverford, I went to Columbia, I lived in neighborhoods, I went to high schools. I have a network that helped me get my first job on Wall Street. The easiest thing one can do to help create a ding in the universe is to figure out who you can help and facilitate their entry into the workforce, do mentoring and provide it. Just don't assume everyone else has that same type of access that you may experience. So that's all.
It's so, it is, man. Thank you. I do have, is Ellie Ellie Price had an opportunity to share. Ellie, are you here still?
Yeah, I'm here.
There we
Thanks.
go. I'm going to spotlight you here. Go for it.
Yeah. I think I have maybe 4 quick points in reflection on other things that people have shared that I think are actionable. One, reflecting on what Richard just stated. Something I've tried to do in the past when I've had opportunity to weigh in or make hiring decisions is intentionally hire people of color. There's no reason not to. Just do it. I recommend just making a commitment yourself to doing that explicitly and intentionally. Number 2, vote. You can vote for candidates of color. You can vote for people who are committed to shifting resources to communities of color and under-resourced communities around. And I'm speaking from the outside in, by the way, I'm currently working for a Chicago-based company. I'm at the moment in Ohio. Haven't lived in Rochester for 10 years, but I'm hoping to get back there soon. And then third, the arts. I'm not familiar with the art scene in Rochester. Who are the up and coming artists who's doing social practice art? But something I'd like to make you all aware of. We touched on the topic of urban redevelopment and gentrification earlier, and I think it's important to the extent that we can include artists in the process of its unfolding. I'm good friends with one of my good friends she calls herself a social practice artist. I had never heard of that term until we became friends. And in Charlotte, North Carolina, she was doing a curated display with one of the HBCUs in the region. And what she did was a project on ethical reclaiming of spaces, reclaiming of Black spaces. The nursing hospital where her Black grandmother had graduated as the first person to go to college, and her family had been raised to make the football stadium several years, a few decades back. And so part of the art project was examining all the formerly Black spaces in the community that had been taken over for other purposes by white power structures over the last several decades. So if Rochester, I don't know the Rochester art scene, but I'm sure that there's amazing creatives in Rochester who have the ability to bring attention and awareness to spaces that have been claimed away from Black voices and Black people. So I'm going to put Janelle, this is my friend, the social practice artist, in here so you can get a sense for the type of work that I'm talking about. And the fourth thing, most actionable for everyone, is I know a founder of a DEI accelerator called Ascending, my friend Jeremy from college. He was a tech recruiter, a diversity tech recruiter in the Bay Area for about several years. And this summer, it was a really meaningful, besides that experience, he realized this summer that he had known Breonna Taylor. He had gone to school with her growing up. And that was a catalyst to starting his own thing to really make a difference in the way people build their cultures and build their companies based on empathy. So he started Ascending, which is a measurable way for companies and startups to build diverse cultures and to recruit diverse talent with a specific Black positive lens, which I think is very important in this country. And so right now he's recruiting about 25 more, or at least last I checked, it was a couple dozen more teams into his inaugural DEI accelerator. It'll take place for 6 months. The first one will start in September. I think the next one will start in January. And I'll put that here, but for startups, for entrepreneurs who are interested in learning how to do better, have better recruitment language, have better DEI practices, and who are willing to make a commitment to Black positive content curation in the workplace, I highly recommend looking into this. And you can contact me. I'll give my contact info, and I'm happy to put you in touch with the founder as well.
Ellie, thank you so much. You must be reading my mind. I was just about to send you a little message. This is incredible, and I love what you're talking about. Thank you so much. I do want to be able to call on one more person, but before I do, and we kind of wrap up here, I know that Adriana is here sort of chomping at the bit. I don't know this, but I'm feeling and sensing that you want to take a photo of everyone for like, for documentation purposes, right? Are you here? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Absolutely.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't been on a call like this before, we have to pause and wave because in other sessions, you know, you just try and kind of do a screen capture and people are like doing weird stuff in weird positions. So everyone like do a peace sign. There's like multiple screens here, so we have to hold it for, I don't know, 15 seconds, okay? So yeah, it's super cheesy and really kind of annoying, I guess, maybe in some cases, but we're gonna do it anyway. So
Yes.
Adriana, you have control. You tell us when and when.
Absolutely. I would count to 3, and then also a quick request, if it's possible for you to put your camera on, that way we just don't have names showing up, that would be great. All right. So first photo, 1, 2, 3. All right, give it a second. We go to the second screen. All right, same thing. 1, 2, and 3. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for entertaining us. Okay, I have one. Is Christina here? Christina, can you do like a 1 minute sort of blip in time if you're here?
Sure.
Christina Lopez.
I was going to just speak quickly to the diversity piece. We integrate what we do with diversity. As you can see, this is actually only in New York where there's about a 2% diversity. We're working with people around building a tech talent pipeline. So our key to our success in integrating everybody into a space where they feel comfortable is to constantly talk about the value of each individual person. Like that is a daily and constant piece of what we do. So, you know, we've had great success without having to put any labels on any of our initiatives. So we don't have an initiative for girls. We don't have an initiative for urban. We don't have an initiative for poverty. We have a tech initiative, and everybody's invited into that space, and they become a part of welcoming the next person that walks through the door and making sure that everybody feels welcome at all times. It's a very purposeful, it's built into the culture and built into everything we do, every meeting, every conversation. And that seems like a lot of work initially. Like if you're not used to doing that, that can seem like a lot of work. But the result of that is you are so far ahead of everybody else. And the innovation and the success of projects that comes out by putting that small amount of effort in early is, I encourage everybody to do it. Someone said just hire them, and I'm like, yeah, hire them and then make sure they've got what they need to be successful, right? Because they need different things. Each of us needs different things. So we're really, you know, this picture that I have here was taken last summer, and you know, it reminds me that we're on the right track, that we're doing it, that we're not talking about it, we're actually doing it. And we can help other people with that too. Like we want to help everybody with that.
Christina, thank you. And for those of you who don't know, the name of the organization is Boundless Connections. I know it's big in the back there, but Christina, can you put a link in the chat so that people can see more about what you guys are up to? It's incredible. And you just moved into, sort of, now that there's physical space opportunity, moved into the Sibley building, downtown Rochester, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And I'd love to give people a tour and hear what you're doing. I'm new to Rochester, so I want to connect with everybody and learn about what you're doing and what your needs are. You know, this pandemic made technology front and center for everybody. It's no longer a sector unto itself. It's definitely for everyone. So yeah, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you for that. Richard, do you want to conclude? We have 1 minute left. Next event's sort of in flux. We've been having these as we go and as we brainstorm. So just stay tuned, email, stay connected on social media, but most importantly, sign up for the email list that we have. My friend, do you want to conclude here? Close things up?
Yeah, let me just tell you, some of you know I'm close with Sean Dunwoody. We've worked on projects together, and he's Ellie, one of our leading art activists, if you will. And we ascribe to the belief if you put it out there, it's more likely to get done. But you have to reinforce it with an effort to execute. So we're doers around here. I know there's some great ideas. Just keep putting it out there, push, and let's reinforce this message to the community. Don't assume politicians think very hard about these issues. Don't assume bureaucrats have knowledge about entrepreneurship. Brad Feld's published a new book as a sequel to his startup Communities. Entrepreneurs, innovators need to lead entrepreneurship and innovation and change. There are other support, there's support roles. There's a larger cast of characters who contribute. But it's an honor to be around you virtually. Hopefully we'll continue the conversation, spread the word. I believe RocGrowth can be a good virus. Spread the word, help each other out. Let's pay it forward, and let's be givers, all right? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody, for attending today. I will say the chat will actually be posted along with a replay of this session. So if you missed something, or there's tons of resources in that chat today, like I'm watching it come in and going like, oh, my mind's being blown. So we really took, like, we covered the whole spectrum, I feel like, and that makes me really happy. So I'm charged up, and I hope you all are too. Thanks again for participating, and we will see you all next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.